So let's make a holster. This is going to be a fun tutorial. I'm using this Kel-Tec PF9, but really you can make this style of holster for many different handguns. First step that we're going to do is draw around the pistol. As you can see, I've canted it a little bit, slanting forward, so that when it is in the holster, it's slanting, so it's easier to pull out. It's not just going to be straight up and down in the holster. So again, first step, just trace around it onto a piece of paper. And then once you have it traced, you're going to start drawing an outline where the stitching is going to be first for the holster. And so as you can see, I'm going 1/4 of an inch outside of the line. That's to give us room. This is where the stitches are actually going to go, and I'm going to design the holster around this so that it holds the weapon well and has good retention without being too tight. You don't want it to be too tight where you can't pull it out, but you don't want it to fall out either. So I'll just be tracing around here. So again, just leaving a little room, and that looks pretty good. So now I'm just drawing the outline of the front of the sheath. I'm going to draw down and miss kind of the back sight with the front part. So you can see here, this comes around, just misses the back sight. And going to bring it down, make sure that it has plenty of leather there to provide retention and protection for the gun. Just kind of do a bit of a smooth arc, kind of like that. And bring that on down and start actually making the lobe for the bottom strap. So the lobe is going to come up like this, just kind of rounding it a little bit for where the strap is going to go on. It's going to be one on that side and then one up here at the top as well. And so I just want to get those proportioned and then draw those out completely, along with just kind of outlining the back of the holster. So the lobes are kind of rounded and then blend into the straight lines of the sheath as they go down. And I'm trying to keep them the same size and symmetrical. Also trying to make the holster to be a little bit triangular and smooth so it slips in into the waistband really easily. Then what I did is I just took the drawing I made and copied it using a little CAD program that I have and made a pattern here, including the straps. And I think I'm going to put this into a Google Docs and put a link where you can download this and just use this as kind of a model for a holster you might make. So for a right-handed person, I'm taking this pattern and laying it face down on the face side of the leather so that it comes out right, and then just tracing around it with a pen. If you do this backwards, you're going to be making a left-handed sheath. Why do I keep saying sheath? Holster. You can tell I'm a knife maker. So you're just going to trace around that, and that eventually is what we're going to cut out from this pattern. Then you're just going to turn the pattern over and only trace the bottom part of the sheath. For the other side of the sheath, which is the side that faces out, simply flip the pattern over, and instead of drawing around the whole thing, draw around the bottom and then just trace or push the pen kind of hard and trace the paper to get the outline of the lip that's shorter than the back, so that you end up with two pieces of leather that look like this. The one on the right is the back of the sheath, and the one on the left is the front of the sheath, and they'll go together. So the next step is to wet the leather pieces in warm water, and you can see I'm just running warm water over them in the sink, getting them fairly wet. We're going to do this so that the leather is a little bit saturated before we dye it, and that's going to help the dye to work better. If you don't do this step, the leather soaks up a lot of dye, and it's much more difficult to get an even color. So now I have these damp pieces and my leather dye. I'm using Kelly's Cobbler, which is a nice professional grade leather dye for cobblers, shoemakers, and just using a wool applicator, and we're just going to spread an even coat of dye all over this damp leather. And I like this color. I tend to, just personal preference, I tend to like sort of darker colors on leather like this for holsters and also for knife sheaths. So you're just going to saturate it really good. Just keep rubbing it in. Then when that's done, you just flip it over and do the rough side of the leather. And as you can see, I've really only done it where you know, you're going to be able to see inside maybe, but not on where it's going to be glued. So now what I'm doing is just putting the pattern back on top of the leather, and I'm going to press down with a pen, and this is how I'm transferring the lines from the pattern where my stitching is going to go onto the leather. So I'm just taking a ballpoint pen and pushing down kind of hard, going back and forth, and this is going to transfer those lines to the leather. So once I've done that, I'm going to take this edging tool, and I'm going to cut grooves for the stitches. And I like this one because it has a guide that goes along the edge, like most of them do. But it also works pretty good for freehanding, and just work with these carefully. You don't absolutely have to recess your stitching with a groover like this. But I like how it gives it a real finished appearance, and it also protects your stitches. They stay down in the leather, and less chance of busting a thread and losing the seam. Then I'm just using a straight edge here just to cut my final groove for the stitches. That's pretty straight, so just running it along like that. And there it is, ready to glue together. So I'm using a rubber, or contact cement rather, weldwood contact cement. And this works real good for leather work. And so we're going to spread contact cement on both sides, let it dry a little bit, and then push the sides together. So now that both sides are a little bit tacky, kind of drying up a little bit, they're ready to push together. Just carefully putting it together and applying some pressure to it and gluing it down. The stitches are really going to hold this together, but want the glue to have a nice bond so that when we drill the holes and get ready for stitching, that it'll stay together. Now that it's glued together, I'm just taking some warm water and a paintbrush, and we're going to put warm water into the grooves that we cut into the leather, the holster, just to soften them up, because we're going to use what's called an overstitch wheel, which is just a wheel with points that are evenly spaced, and this is going to mark where our stitching is going to go. So just moistening that up with the warm water, and that'll make the leather soft and receive those perforations, so I'll know where to drill, and it'll be nice and even. So this is my overstitch wheel. This is a number 5. I don't know if you can see that in the video, but what that means is there are 5 stitches per inch, and so this is a little bit of a bigger one, which I really like. I don't like my stitches to be too small, and this seems to work great for me for the holsters and sheaths I do. So you're just going to run this through the groove carefully, and it's just going to mark with these little perforations where your stitches are going to be. And there's a close-up picture of what that looks like. You can see that's nicely marked. And then I'm just going to drill these holes on a drill press. You can punch them or drill them. I find it easier to drill them. And I'm just going to carefully do this until there's a hole through every one of those little marks all the way around the holster. And so that's what it looks like. There are all the holes, and it's ready to stitch up. I take my stitch groover, and on the back side of the sheath where the drill holes came through, I just take that grooving tool around and kind of connect the dots, and it's ready to sew. But first I'm going to take this little edger, and I'm just going to trim the edges a little bit to just get them a little bit even. This is kind of a good time to do this on the top. And then we'll just start sewing. So what I started doing here is just sewing through, and you just go through one hole at a time, and you're actually skipping a hole, as you can see there. And then once I get around to finishing one side, I just come back through the other way. So just turn around and come back through backwards, cut it off, and then I'm just going to burn the threads here a little bit. They'll melt down. I'm sewing with nylon, and once they kind of melt down, that just really gives it a good tight fit. So that's what it looks like stitched up. I didn't explain that stitching part very well, so I thought I would just use a scrap piece of leather here and show you exactly what I mean, since again it wasn't filmed very well. But again, this is the leather, let's say, that you want to stitch. How you're going to start out is you take your needle and thread, and you're going to start in this first hole here, and you're going to come up through, and you want to leave a little bit of thread like that, so I'm just going to hold it like that. Then I'm just going to sew in the most basic fashion. So I'm just going down through here, then back up through here, back like that, and like that. So you're sewing through, and as you see, there's a stitch missing here. But once you sew completely around the holster, or whatever else you're sewing in leatherwork, you're just going to go back through. So I go down through here, up, down like that again, and then when you come to here, you can see on the back side you're going to finish this stitch, and then you're going to come back to end this, just to make sure that your stitches are tight. You're going to come back over this, and you can do this a couple of times. On a holster or a sheath, these holes obviously are going to be close together, so they're going to be smaller. But you could come back up through a couple of times. You could sew back up like this, and then you want to finish so that you're coming down and both of these little tails, you know, are back here. So that way, again, your stitching is going to be tight, and you're just going to snip these off. And with this nylon, again, I like to leave a little extra sticking out like this, so that when I melt this, when I burn this, the nylon melts down and it almost forms a little nylon rivet. I let it burn down until it hits the top of the hole, and then it's just a little lump. And then if I, you know, like I did in the video, just use the back of a tool or something and push it down. It's very hot, don't use your finger. And then, you know, you've got some really strong stitching that's not going to come out. And to hot mold the sheath, I'm just running some hot water in the sink and putting hot water down into the sheath, and just getting it where it's moldable. I don't want it too soaked, but you can see it's pretty flexible. It's ready to mold the shape. So the next step is to take the handgun and to wrap it in saran wrap. So I'm wrapping in saran wrap because I want to use the gun as the mold to mold the sheath to, and of course want to protect it from moisture and from any leather dye that's lingering around. So the trick is to use a couple layers of saran wrap. I double wrap and sometimes triple wrap, just to make sure that the handgun is completely protected from the water and, like I said, from any lingering leather dye. And once this thing is completely wrapped, we'll stick it into the wet sheath and begin to mold it. So here's what it looks like in the sheath, and I'm just going to begin first to finger mold it, and also to bend it back a little bit so that it kind of is concave, because your hip is shaped that way. It's not just flat. And just keep working it with my fingers. And then I'm going to take the smooth back of this table knife here and just begin to work this along every crease and get it really form fitted to the sheath a lot more. Continuing just to form fit the sheath and to give special attention to the trigger area and other places. You notice they keep saying sheath because I'm a knife maker and it's hard to remember to say holster. So I keep working with this table knife and with my fingers and just get it form fitted to a point that I really like it. And I'm just gonna leave it to dry a little bit and we'll come back to it. So while the gun is in the holster and it's drying, I'm going to go ahead and cut out the straps. Just trace around these patterns on the leather to get the straps. I'm going to let the gun stay in the holster until it's almost dry, but then I'm going to pull it out because it'll shrink a tiny bit and give a nice tight fit if the gun isn't in it. So we'll make the straps and be all ready to assemble it. So I have the straps, and I'm just going to use this little edger and put a nice trimmed edge on here to give it a nice rounded over appearance when I kind of burnish these. So then you'll dye these straps just like you dyed the other pieces of the holster. And after they're dyed, I'm just using a quarter here to draw a rounded edge, and then we'll cut those out so that the top and the bottom of the strap will be rounded. Okay, and the next step I'm going to do is take a little bit of shoe polish. This is dark brown shoe polish, and just put some shoe polish on the outside of the sheath. I want to concentrate on the areas where I'm putting the straps on, because this will be impossible to apply evenly after the straps are already on. So just get a little bit of shoe polish in there to protect the leather, to give it a nice waxy coat. So after cutting the rounded part of the strap, I'm ready to fold them and just get them ready to punch the holes where the flanged T-nut is going to go through and hold it to the holster. So after punching the holes, this is what it looks like. And I like to punch the holes in the straps first so then I can mark on the holster where they're going to go. And I want to fit the rounded part up against this little lobe and just adjust it for the stitching. And then I'm just going to use this little Allen wrench actually to just mark a place where I'm going to put the hole. So here's what the flanged T-nut looks like. You can get these pretty much any hardware store or order it online if you need to. So I'm sorry, but my video camera battery died, and I missed one important thing that I wanted to show you. On the holster, once I had a hole, you can drill it or you can punch it through here for this little T-bolt, T-nut with the little prongs that hold it in. All I did was stick the barrel part of it in, and then put a piece of wood, a wooden block, on the top of it, laid it down on a old piece of leather like this, and then just hammered just gently so that those sharp prongs bite into the leather and hold it and keep it from spinning. So sorry about that, but that's what I did. I don't have video of me doing it. Like I said, you can punch that or you can drill that and set that nut in there real good. Here's what the holster looks like. I went ahead and put two button head machine screws down through the T-bolts and snugged it up securely. You can see I have a little washer in there just to give it a little extra help. Now here's an important design consideration. As you can see, the holster comes down and it misses the mag release. If the holster went over the mag release, you can have a lot of problems with the magazine accidentally ejecting, if it gets pushed like that by the holster. So that's something important to think about. Well, this is what the holster looks like concealed. Obviously I'm wearing a long john shirt that's pretty tight, but it goes in and out like that, and we've got a great finished sheath. Here's the final product, and I'm real happy with how that turned out. I just wanted to show you a photo of what this carry rig looks like. Now again, this is a different pistol. This is my Car 9mm. But as you can see, this in the waistband holster rides like this. It's very comfortable. It form fits to my back and hip, and rides very comfortably like this, easy to draw. I don't feel it when I'm driving or anything else. Just a great style, and I think you'll like making one.